We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Our final segment this morning, Professor Thomas Schwartz is with us from over at Vanderbilt, and talking to him, as you see on the screen, about politics, national security. We have this presidential race. We have what's happening all around the world with some of these horrible incidents, claiming people's lives, some terrorists, some just domestic violence of one way or the other here in this country. So we obviously have heard and talked plenty about what happened during the Republican convention, and we've touched on what Donald Trump said and how they portrayed things in somewhat a scary dark light at some point, meaning there's a need for change. Now, what do you anticipate today? We've got 2 more days of the Democratic convention. What do you suspect we'll hear from the president when he speaks?
I think the president is actually going to be the first one at the convention to really talk about Hillary as Secretary of State, and he's going to emphasize more her foreign policy experience. I have a feeling he's going to do something of a dramatic reading of her in the room when they got Osama bin Laden and her advice on that.
I was wondering if that was going to be brought up, because when I think about President Obama and some of the, to me, just the high points in his presidency, I think that, for me, and he probably wouldn't agree, because there's other things that have more social significance in this country, but the SEAL Team 6 taking out Osama bin Laden, to me, is something I will always remember. When someone years from now asks me about the Obama presidency, for better or for worse, I'm going to say he took out bin Laden.
Right. And I think Hillary played a role in that.
Sure. I remember the picture of them all sitting there. Watching.
Yeah. No, so I think he's going to be the first one really to highlight her as a real international leader. And I think you'll see in that the attempt to really show the contrast with Trump, someone who really understands foreign policy, who understands how to deal with terrorism. So these will be themes that haven't been touched on yet, and now will be the president's ability to do that. And the other thing he'll do is say, if you like what I've done and you want the legacy and you want the achievements preserved, you have to vote for Hillary. And that's a sort of a subtle pitch to the Bernie Sanders supporters.
The truth is, and I listened on NPR driving in this morning, that truly, too, for this president, the election is going to have a good deal to do with his legacy, will it not?
Yes.
I mean, some of things that he's done, if Hillary does not win, could be undone.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, Trump has made it clear he's going to get rid of Obamacare. He's going to reverse many of the president's executive actions. His treatment of immigration is totally different. So from this point of view, the president, if he wants to preserve the legacies and the achievements, really has to be very concerned with who his successor is.
Let's go to Joe. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Hi, Joe.
Just a brief comment.
Sure.
I don't think the American public has figured out that the president don't necessarily run this country. You got Congress and Senate, that everything he does has to go by. So Barack Obama said it better than I can, that when I got to Washington, I had a whole lot of things that I thought I wanted to do. I found out right quick when I got to Washington, that's not necessarily the case.
Well, that's a great point. And you would imagine that'll be a rude awakening to some degree for Donald Trump if he wins, because he's going to find out he has to deal with them the same way. Every president has to learn that, right? Yeah, well, now, I will say this, though. You do have to deal with Congress, but one reason many of the things that the president did could be undone if Donald Trump wins is he did a lot of things, especially with regard to immigration, with executive order.
Executive order on immigration and the environment, a number of areas where he used more executive action.
Yeah, kind of bypassing, and I fully don't understand how he's able, in the way it's written in the Constitution, to do that, but the new president can come in and, by executive order, reverse a lot of that without even having to deal with Congress. And he did quite a bit of that, especially in his second term.
Yes. Yeah. No, as he faced a more and more obstructionist Congress, he simply acted on his own. And, some of those reversals could be, or some of those could be quickly reversed.
Yes. Now, okay, so I think I agree with you on that. Do you think at any point with regard to the president speaking, will they touch on any of the negatives that sometimes the opponents will attack Hillary Clinton on, like Benghazi or anything like that, to try to give the perspective of what they think really happened there? Or do you think they'll just stay away from things like that?
I think it might be interesting. I think the president might frame it in the context of the struggle against terrorism, and he might then say something connected to that. But I think they've largely tried to avoid, because I mean, essentially, the getting into that argument is not necessarily one that they feel they can really. It's a complicated argument.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to present and to show. I mean, there was a way in which that was a failure. I mean, to have 4 lives lost on your watch with absence of security, that's something you don't want to highlight. But on the other hand, he may then stress the role she played in bringing down Osama bin Laden, and that as key and more important.
Okay, and as far as the contrast when we hear from Hillary, when she speaks, with what we know Donald Trump said, I mean, that's going to close out the convention. What do you expect from her?
Well, I think she will present herself as someone who both is embracing the Obama legacy, but also will provide change. She will probably highlight the areas domestically that she's going to be doing. She's still got a lot of Bernie supporters out there that she'll want to convince that she's a progressive. On foreign policy, she'll highlight both her experience and her calm and good judgment compared to the impulsive and reckless Trump. I think that will be there. And I think she will probably embrace a very positive tone. She'll present a much better, a much sunnier picture of the United States now than it was 8 years ago, and all of the rest of that, in contrast to Trump, but say that we still need to move ahead.
And then to really see those contrasts face to face will be when the debates start. And you were telling me then there typically are 4 debates, one of them the vice presidential debate.
That's right.
And then 3 others. You think the first one will be sometime near the end of September?
Yeah, they're scattered over about a 4-week period. I think about mid-September and to late September as the first one. They also are usually, there's a domestic policy, there's usually a foreign policy one, and then a sort of general one, and a vice presidential debate either comes after the first or after the second debate.
Okay, and these debates can take different forms if they
they have
debates.
The town hall.
Right, I was going to say, there could be town hall, or there could be just a situation one where you have journalists asking questions, and certain candidates will do better with some than others.
The famous town hall one, in which Bill Clinton really beat George H.W. Bush. He was much more comfortable in that format. So there will be a variety of formats. There will be the town hall one, I think, is still in there. So,
okay, and certainly one of those, that's where I hope, because right now you hear a lot of promises, and especially from Donald Trump, where he says a lot of things that people like to hear, but you don't know how he's necessarily going to do it. Between now and then, maybe he'll be pressed on it, and we can hear the 2 candidates maybe sharing some more specifics. I don't know how much
I doubt it.
In the debates, you're not even going to get that.
No, I think you'll still get a lot of rhetoric, and they may get ugly. They may get ugly. There's a lot of personal venom in this. It could be an unusual debate in the sense that even if journalists ask questions about some of the personal attacks that Trump has made on Hillary and some of the other things that have been said, it could get very personal.
It could get personal, and the question will be whether or not Hillary fires back in that way.
Even if she doesn't, it could get quite personal because of the way Trump has run his campaign and some of the things he said. I mean, he's given her a nickname, Crooked Hillary. He's done all of this. So it could be an unprecedented degree of personal attack in the debates compared to previous debates.
Okay, I want to ask you this too, just about the vice presidential candidates. Less important for Hillary than for Donald Trump, but I think he purposely chose what many would consider a true insider in politics, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and the role how important is that?
No, you've got 2 governors, Pence and Kaine. They reflect much more consistently the ideological stances of the past. And Pence is a very conservative Republican. Kaine's a liberal Democrat. That could be a much more substantive and policy-based debate between 2 people who actually know each other and probably respect each other more than the 2 candidates do.
Yeah, well, absolutely, absolutely. Now, and then my question is, how often maybe Donald Trump will defer or seek some counsel with his VP?
I think very unlikely.
Very unlikely.
Yes.
It's going to be his baby,
and this is his election, his party. His candidacy, and
it's worked every step of the way for him. So you understand that, but at some point, I just wonder if, as an outsider who is not familiar with that, if he becomes president, at what point does he say, "Okay, I'm here, and I've gotten here doing it my way, and I know what I believe and want, but I'm not sure how to get all this done." I mean, I just wonder who he's truly going to seek counsel from. I mean, even he, with his ego, and any candidate, Hillary has one too. would probably concede, okay, I need a little guidance here, because he can't know everything about everything, right?
It seems that the real guidance comes from inside the family.
Okay, yeah, so his family, and that even raises the question, again, we're getting a little afield here, but if he does win, who's going to run his business empire? Because you say he may pass it on to his family, but I would imagine he'll have his family, very involved with him politically.
He has enough children, though, probably to leave one in charge of that, and I think that the problem will be that there's going to be a way in which running the government of the United States and running his business is going to almost seem the same thing sometimes with Trump. He doesn't draw sharp lines between the two.
Yeah. So do you think he will be banging his head against Congress if he wins?
I think it would be so unprecedented. It's hard to speculate. I think he would certainly face resistance in Congress, but I think he'd be very willing to use executive authority, and I think it would be a very tumultuous period in our history.
Yeah, and it's going to depend, too, and I don't know what your thoughts on this. I mean, I believe this is going to be a close race down to the wire to some degree. I don't know that whoever wins is going to be able to come in there and say they've got some landslide consensus that they can slug Congress over the head with. I think it's going to be, whoever wins, somewhat split, obviously very close. I don't know, that's just the way you look at the polls right now, which I don't put much stock in, frankly. I just don't, because they're imperfect in so many ways. But it does appear like the country is split, as you know.
The country is split. No, it could be a close election. It also could be one of those elections like that in 1980, in which there's a big shift after the debates. That the debates either shift it toward one or the other candidate, and you do get more of a landslide, or at least what we would call now a landslide, than what we've had in the past. So I technically agree with you that it's more likely to be a close election, but it could happen differently too.
And what you're saying there, be it the debates having a role, or if there is some type of significant misstep by one of the candidates.
That's correct. Well, although missteps...
I was about to say, I don't think it matters. I think for the ardent supporters of either one of these candidates, barring them being caught on video committing a felony, I don't think it will matter to either of the supporters. I just don't think they care. It can be right there in black and white in front of them, something horrible, and they're not going to care.
Well, as Donald Trump has said, if I shot someone on Main Street, I'd still have these people voting for me. So I think there is that sense that it
at
would
least
still
he
be
acknowledges
there. Yes.
that. Professor, thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
We'll see you down the road. We'll do this again. I'll be back with more right after this.